Hello again. I'm back to offer my take on the last episode of Ice Queen and final perspective on the series overall. But first I want to thank my wonderful patrons for making these episodes possible, links below. So, quick summary. We open on the cast enjoying a night in their dorm room. Ruby and Weiss are writing letters home conveying their character growth. Yang is luring Blake into losing video games to her and is being given reading assignments as a counter. And also look at the glow up to the game from V3. It's followed with Blake and Weiss having to shake hands and make up. Weiss being bothered Blake didn't trust her feels weird given her reactions, but oh well. Shion sees off the cast with a heartening lecture explaining how their semblance evolved over time, also that the Nightmare Grimm are attracted to people with strong auras but sensitive personalities. Ozpin's last line to Shion really adds to the theory that they used to date to me. Not sure why. Ozpin then wants to speak to Ruby and Blake respectively. Honestly, he manages to come off as especially ominous throughout, especially with Blake. Like, I sure as hell don't blame her for not trusting you, dude. He also completely misses the theme of the series when Ruby highlights the importance and empowering nature of teamwork, and he's disappointed to see she doesn't recall using her eyes, what with them knocking her out and all. The lighting and use of shadows and gears in this scene is great. After this, Weiss is waiting to have another talk with Blake, which feels a touch redundant and a bit both-sidism for my taste. Ruby and Yang are at a cafe, and Yang is ribbing Ruby, and then Sun shows up. They end up explaining to him why he should not tell him Blake was in the White Fang, and he promises not to. Wah, wah, wah. Also, Yang's seemingly incredible sarcasm in response to Sun boasting his friends are hot is hilarious to me. Ruby and Weiss also engage in some peer-related banter, and there's a great bit highlighting that Blake's not naturally a quiet and serious character, but that she's getting used to being in a safe environment after all of her trauma. Then we get a scene and find out Juniper stayed the entire break at Beacon, and Jean's been training under Pyrrha throughout. Nora remains amusingly unimpressed with his ambitions to protect them all, and both she and Ren think highly of one another. Then we get the cafeteria opening scene from V2, mostly redone faithfully, with a bit more context or expansion, such as Weiss being the one to declare the food fight. The animation was gorgeous, and it basically served as a highlight reel for the fight, and to narration-wise, it covered the themes of the series. Seeing the aura infusing the foodstuffs was a fun detail. Also, great callback with Snowboard Ruby. If the whole reason she got aboard in the dream was to explain her surfing on the lunch board, then money well spent. There was also a lovely tribute to Monty at the end, to which I can add nothing save my continued admiration for him and his legacy. With the summary done, let's talk some specifics. So, as is typical for RWBY, the second last episode was the climax and the last episode was falling action. This is a nice bit of tension relief for the audience and the characters. I feel Weiss and Blake's talks retain too much both-sidism, but it's nice seeing Weiss show her growth by trying to reach out diplomatically. As noted, the scene in Ozpin's office using rotating gears to project shadows whenever Blake or Ozpin weren't telling the truth, i.e. keeping the other in the dark, was a cool detail. Ruby's side of that discussion was also interesting as it really helps crystallize her character. Ruby's unsure she deserves to be leader, but resolves to do it as best she can. This is well reflected later in the show in how she is fine letting others lead right up until they fail. Ruby's not someone who seeks out leadership or greatness, but has it thrust upon her and also views it as a duty to bear it alone. Other than that, the music was solid as always. The use of Awake to score the opening scene and Beyond Cells to Blake and Weiss's talk on the way to the cafe was chef's kiss. The final scene being a callback to Salem and Ozpin's dialogue showing the childish joy that the cast get to embrace and hints at the trials ahead, it really does embody the themes of the entire volume and the hope-punk nature of the series overall. As to Ice Queendom thoughts overall, they got the characters and relationships down so well, it felt nostalgic despite being new, and that wasn't just the setting. I love the added focus certain relationships were given, like Weiss's views on Pyrrha or the Bumblebee subtext, and Ruby and Weiss's just whole thing was pure fuel on the dynamics fire. Despite my contentions with the handling of the White Fang/Fauna subject, I do appreciate the added depth it gave to both Blake and Weiss's character. The animation did take some dips in the midsection, but honestly, most of those segments weren't hugely important either. That is to say, they used the budget and skill where it was really needed, and in those segments, which I feel make up the majority of the series, oh boy does it show. RWBY's action is not easy to capture, but they did a fantastic job of imbuing it with their own sense of style and weight while keeping it consistent with the original series. Overall, I think one of the most notable things about Ice Queendom is that it's very much a homage and wears that on its sleeve. The fights adapted, the subtle call forwards, the relationships focused on, and more the way they focused on them. The sheer degree of affection for the series, setting and cast, this was a labour of love, and it was directed to the fandom, and it's truly appreciated. Thanks for the wild ride, Ice Queendom. I hope we get more out of Japan in the coming years. If you would like to help support these episodes and get early access to scripts, videos and stories, please hit up my Patreon linked below. If you'd like to commission 3D art, follow the link to my Ko-fi or Twitter and we can chat. Thanks for stopping by.